Hi, hey GD50. Um, I'm making this video because a lot of your mock-ups, you have designs where there are very large examples of the characters in the backgrounds underneath some of the text. And I want to show you how to do that. Because the thing is that um, I've made a grid here, a simple 3-column grid, and I put 4 things in it, 4 grid items in it. And the thing is that they don't want to be on top of each other. By default, they're going to, if I tell this to go up here, everything else is going to move aside and align itself, after it. So how do we force them to inhabit the same cell on a grid? And I'm going to show you how I do that. So I've got 3 columns here, and I've got 4 things in there. I've got one thing called title. I've got this other one called fonts, this other one called alpha for alphabet. And then I've got one more down here that I don't really want it to be down here. I want it to be behind the word Georgia. I want it to be sort of a design element behind Georgia to show off the character. So I've named this one initial. So the way we can do that and get them to inhabit the same space is to force them into the same space. So if I did something like this, where I'm going to take the initial one, initial, and I'm going to tell it to go exactly where I want it to go. So I'm going to say grid, column, and I want it to go from 1 to 2. Remember, this is line 1, this is line 2, line 3, and line 4. So I want to go to 1 to 2. I could have it, span all of these if I wanted it to. I could tell it to go from 1 to 4, and then it would cover the entire page. That would be fine as well. And then more importantly, grid, I want it to jump up a row. Grid row 1, 2. So it's jumped up there, but you see how it's pushed everything over because they don't want to be in the same cell. So now what I need to do is take this one right here, the title, the one I call title, and force it into this cell over here. So I'm going to do that right here. Title. And it's going to be exactly the same here. Grid column 1, 2, grid row 1, 2. So I'm just going to copy and paste that. And now they're inhabiting the same space. So now I can move that G up and down. I've taken off, I made it really big. I've taken off the margin because it's an H1, or is it an H1? No, it's just a P, but the P's and the header tags come with some margin already. So I took that off because if I didn't have it on, if I had it on, there would be so much space there. See that? So that's why I took the margin off. And now I could position this, I can actually position this to make it go up. I can use negative margins. So I can say margin top negative 50 pixels, and that will bump it up. But notice now that we've done that, that one's on top of the other one. But we can fix that by using a property called z-index. So z-index is kind of, think like x, y, and z. So the depth of the page, think of it as like stacking order in Illustrator. Some things, you have to send to back, bring to front, that sort of thing. So we use z-index to take care of that. So under initial here, I'm going to say z-index, and the lower the number, the further back. So imagine them stacking them one on top of the other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to give it a really low number because I want to make sure it goes all the way to the back. So I'm going to say -1. And there, I've got it in the back. I could also just have taken Georgia and give it a really high z-index and it would come to the top. That would be a solution as well. And then here, so here, if you want to like make them go up the page, you can use negative margins to get them up and to the side. If you wanted to tilt them, you could use a property called transform rotate. So transform and then you say rot, and you can always Google this, like how do I rotate text in CSS? And you'll find the answer there. So rotate, and then you give it in parentheses here, you're going to give it degrees. So I'm going to say 45 degrees. And it rotates at 45 degrees. So you can play around these numbers and move things around. I could also say -45 degrees, and it would go that way. So depending on the effect you want, you can use transform, rotate, negative margins to move things around and sort of assemble your background, the background of your type specimen if you have something like this. And you can do this also with graphic elements. If you just have a rectangle that you wanted to place on the page and have it be at an angle, you could do that. Instead of a G, you would just make a div and give it a width, a height, and a background color. You could do that as well. If you want just a line, you could do a small rectangle, or you could use a border on div, something like that. I'm trying to think of what other elements you had in your designs. Well, I think that covers a lot for a lot of you. So I hope this video is helpful, and looking forward to seeing what you produce. Okay, bye-bye.